Ember Witch. Book 1. The Lich. Volume 1. Black Tragedy. Chapter 3. Half-Blood. October 21st to December 21st, 458 BME. Fragment 18. The High Priestess. Vera woke up feeling sore and tired. Her legs hurt and her back was aching. She rolled off of her bed and quickly dressed, then proceeded to get back to her search. She opened the door and walked silently to the training room where she had left dozens of books scattered across the tables. She picked one at random and began flipping through the pages, hoping for any sign of Takashi's intentions. Hundreds of theoretical ramblings related to color and necromancy flashed past her eyes as she skimmed each page, but nothing stood out to her. No handwritten notes in the margins or obvious signs of study showed through. She continued this quick pace through another dozen books, but still nothing.
What were you after? Show me a sign, Takashi,
she thought in her mind as page after page went by, with hope growing smaller and smaller by the second. After another hour of frustration, she stood up and tossed a book to the ground.
You damn coward. To think I called you my brother once,
she said loudly to the empty room. She wrapped her collar around herself and lashed out, scorching the floor as a deep red jet of flames raged.
I take it you haven't found anything yet,
Neela said, and Vera spun around with rage in her eyes.
Nothing. Takashi has left nothing for us to go off of. It's been 4 days since we have gotten back and I haven't found anything. I am losing my mind trying to figure out why he would have been involved with necromancy. I went through his room, every book I could find within our sanctuary, and still nothing,
Vera replied, still wrapped in her collar.
I think a day out could help you. Go to a pub or a whorehouse and blow off steam. Clear your head and come back with a new plan,
Neela said with a calm demeanor.
We don't have time for that. I have until Monday to figure out what he was planning, and then I have to leave the sanctuary once again on some ill-informed quest, but now instead of just hunting down a criminal I have to save the world. I have no idea where to start. I have nothing to go off of,
Vera said, pushing past Neela into the hallway. Neela caught her arm before Vera could disappear from sight and stopped her from moving.
I understand your frustration, Vera, but lashing out in anger doesn't help. Please go out and have a drink. Take the night off and loosen up,
Neela said while looking into Vera's eyes.
Fine. If I come back wasted, it's your fault,
Vera said, dropping her collar. Neela let go and smiled.
I'll make sure you get to your bed when you get back.
Hey, get up, we are going out,
Vera said, shaking Fevra awake.
Fuck. What time is it?
Fevra asked with a groggy tone.
It's nearly noon. We are going out, so get your ass up,
Vera replied, ripping the fur blanket off of Fevra, revealing his nudity.
Oh come on, man,
Vera said in joking disgust.
What is your deal?
Fevra asked in annoyance as the cold air began to irritate him.
Just get up already, you lazy ass,
Vera said, throwing the blanket at him.
Fuck. Fine, I'm up, Setri, you're so demanding.
Fevra replied as he stood up, dropping the blanket back onto his bed. He strode to his shelf and grabbed a set of his skin-tight black and gray clothing, his many belts and tool bags and his cloak, and quickly dressed as Vera watched quietly.
Why not make yourself useful and toss me that brush?
Fevra said, pointing to the shelf that Vera stood closest to. She rolled her eyes and grabbed it, then tossed it.
What? I need to keep my fur brushed, otherwise it gets matted.
Fevra replied as he ran the brush through his fur.
Just hurry up,
Vera said as she watched him. With each brush stroke, she got more and more impatient, but held herself from saying anything too harsh. Fevra tossed the brush onto the bed and walked to the door.
So where are we going?
Fevra asked, and Vera smiled.
For a drink.
Fevra and Vera made their way through the busy markets and crowded streets. They had passed several different pubs, whorehouses, and even restaurants as they traveled through the city. He still felt like a failure, and being partially crippled had his mind rattled. He felt like everyone they passed was staring at him. Every conversation was about the Lyran who was missing an arm. He couldn't help but think about what happened to him. What made the gods hate him? His brother was gone, he had lost his home, after finally finding his new purpose, he lost his arm. He couldn't understand what he had done to deserve this. He had to tie off his right sleeve so his stump wouldn't be exposed to the cold weather, but the loose end blew in the breeze, making him even more conscious of what he had lost. He didn't want to let his emotions show, especially out in the middle of the largest city in the east. Myopia had begun construction at the end of the Age of Gods. He had learned that when the gods walked Haven, the Firen began building this city using the mountains as a massive mine for all the stone and iron needed to erect the sewer systems that ran underground, keeping the streets clear of waste and disease. The buildings that made up the majority of the city were built from wood and stone with thin walls, but elegant and beautiful decorative elements. He could marvel at the construction of the city for his entire life, and paying attention to the beauty of it helped him when he felt like this. He watched the crowds of different colored Firen exchange gold, silver, copper, and even steel coins for food, drinks, clothing, furniture, weapons, and armor, along with all assortments of jewelry and accessories. They had no idea what could be coming. No idea that in the matter of a few years, if that, the elven army could be marching against the city. Children ran about laughing and playing. Shop owners made profit by selling their wares. None of them had any clue about what was going to happen if they didn't stop it. He knew that going out to drink and party was a waste of time. Despite him sleeping until noon, he had been training with Neela every day since they had gotten back from Halcyon. He had been struggling to keep his fighting spirit ever since he lost his arm. He couldn't react fast enough. He was clumsy and uncoordinated. His left arm wasn't as strong as his right had been, so he would stumble around lazily, slapping back attacks instead of fully parrying them. His strikes were slow and awkward, but he knew that if he didn't train, he would absolutely die when facing an elven mage. They walked another several blocks before they arrived at a small, nearly dilapidated building.
Really? This is where you bring us? A destroyed building in the worst possible corner of the city. Nice, it's not like there weren't any respectable places we could go about 10 blocks back.
Vera said, and Vera stopped to look at him.
We are here because I know the owner, we are here because he might be able to help us learn more about what the necromancers and Delvin are doing. We are here because it's cheap, dirty, and just the place we would be likely to find information. Now if you have any more questions I would gladly answer them. Oh wait, no I wouldn't.
Vera replied sarcastically, and Fevra rolled his eyes. They walked through the door into a tiny room, divided into two distinct spaces. The first space consisted of a bar that ran the length of the building with a white furred Firen standing behind it, glass in hand. The second space had two tables, with 4 chairs crowded around them each.
Vera, it's been 4 years since you last graced me with your presence? What can I do for you?
The man asked, cutting through the silence of the empty room.
I need some advice, Jiro.
Vera replied as she walked to the bar and leaned against it. Fevra followed close behind and pulled up a stool, then sat down.
By the void, Lyran? You two aren't a couple, are you?
Jiro asked, with a sneer.
Pay attention, Jiro, he isn't your problem right now, I am.
Vera said, and Jiro looked away from Fevra with a scoff.
I doubt that, but what do you need?
Jiro said, and set the glass down with a hard thud.
You know who I'm here for.
Vera said, and Jiro frowned.
Why?
Is all he said in reply.
Come on, Jiro, you know why. Don't act like it's a surprise.
Vera replied, and Jiro poured a choco of sake, then passed it to her.
Look, Hana hasn't talked to me in months. I doubt that she would ever want to talk to you after everything that went down.
Jiro said, then looked at Fevra with a scowl.
Does he really have to be here?
He finished saying, and Fevra shot Vera a look of confusion.
Get over it already. He isn't going to do anything. Get him a drink, stop being a bitch and tell me where Hana is.
Vera said, then took a drink. Jiro frowned but did as she asked.
She is in the Lane district. You seriously should stay away from her. What does she have to offer you that the Cinder doesn't?
You feel uneasy, don't you? A dark pressure in the back of your mind? Perhaps you feel angry or possibly you feel like you want to cry?
Vera asked, then took another large drink.
What are you getting at?
Jiro asked, puzzled.
My partner is the cause of this. Hana has known necromancy far longer than I have. She knows far more about it than either of us. If what is affecting Vera is any indication of what is to come, I need her help.
Vera replied, gesturing to Fevra.
What is happening, Vera?
Jiro asked with worry.
I don't know all of the details currently. What I do know is that a clan of necromancers have been trying to forge blood blades. My clan brother Takashi was responsible for the murder of the Grand Bell Sage and was in league with this clan. I need Hana's help determining what Takashi's role in all of this was.
Vera explained.
Was? You mean to say he is dead?
Jiro asked.
I killed him around 2 months ago in Halcyon. Used a soul spell on him that nearly killed me in the process.
Vera replied softly. Fevra took a large drink, then set it down. Jiro, noticing that he and Vera had finished their drinks, poured another round.
Look, I will send her a letter tonight, but I can't guarantee my sister will help you. She hasn't let go of the past. I am more easy to forgive, but you did a number on our family after that night.
Jiro said, then grabbed a parchment, quill and ink from under the bar. He jotted down a few sentences, and folded the letter once the ink dried.
If you don't mind, what happened between you and Hana?
Fevra asked after a moment. Jiro sneered at the question and Fevra shot him a look.
She was the one who trained me in necromancy. Neela contracted her to teach me everything I know, however we became at odds with each other after I refused to use my position as a cinder to gather bodies for rituals. She fought with me about it until things turned to real violence. I ended up nearly killing her but was stopped by Cress.
Vera said, then took another large drink. Jiro bowed his head, thinking back to the day.
Why don't I step out and send this message? I'm guessing you would like to speak with her as soon as possible,
he said, seeing that Vera had taken to a depressive mood after speaking about that night. Vera rolled her eyes, and took another drink. Jiro walked out from behind the bar and out the door. Shortly after the door closed, the sound of a bell rang out and Jiro stepped back inside.
The mail carrier should be able to get it to her within the next few hours. I hope you know what you are getting into,
he said, and stepped back behind the bar. Fevra looked up from the table to Jiro.
Why not just take us to her? We don't have all day to sit around waiting for a reply.
I don't dare set foot in that part of town. I sure as fuck can't stop her from living there, but it's not a place meant for Rin like me,
Jiro said, then turned his back to him.
I for one am just fine spending all day here,
Vera said, and finished off her drink, then grabbed Fevra's. Fevra held up his hand in a sarcastic manner, and Vera smiled, then tipped the choco back.
I still don't see why we can't go find Hana ourselves. 2 cinders should be able to handle anything that comes our way,
Fevra said, and Vera looked him in the eyes.
I think you are missing the point of coming here, Fevra. Neela told me to relax, so I am. I don't want to seek out anyone, instead I will let them come to me.
Jiro shrugged and leaned against the bar.
She has a point, although I doubt being drunk will help the situation when she does arrive.
Fevra sighed with frustration.
Fine, I'll be patient,
he said, and leaned back in his chair. Vera took another drink, ignoring both of them. They talked for another 2 hours, and drank another 6 rounds of alcohol, before the bar door crashed open.
What do you want, Jiro? Oh, it's you,
a thin woman said in palpable disappointment. She wore a long black robe similar to that of a priestess, although much more sinister in design. A large shoulder cloak on her left arm with a pentagram embroidered onto it in a bright golden color. Inside the pentagram sat each symbol of the Soul Galaxy. A star representing the sun, a pair of circles representing Haven and its moon, Neva. A set of 3 circles in an altered pattern, the first being the second largest, the center being the largest and the final being the smallest representing Cetra and its moons, and finally another set of 2 circles each hollow representing Kellis and its moon. She stepped forward to Vera, who hadn't moved, and ripped her off the chair. Spinning her around with force, she shoved Vera into the bar.
I told you I never wanted to see you again. What the fuck do you want, bitch?
Hana said in pure rage in Fires.
Hey beautiful, nice night, isn't it?
Vera said with a slur.
Are you serious?
Hana said, gripping Vera's shirt tightly and pushing her further into the bar. Fevra stood up, and before he could expand his color, Hana had summoned a pink flame in her hand.
Move another inch and you die, mutt,
she said, extending her arm out towards him. Fevra froze in place, not wanting to make the situation worse.
You have the nerve to ask my pussy brother to get me here instead of finding me on your own, then you drink yourself into a hole and on top of that bring a fucking Lyran into the city? What is your fucking deal? Are you mentally damaged or something?
Hana questioned in native Fires. Vera laughed and pointed to Fevra.
He is the exact reason why I came here. Can you feel it?
Vera replied back in Fires. Hana loosened her grip and turned to Fevra. She studied his features. The sideways eye burned into his forehead, the missing arm. The darkness that permeated from his very being.
You can't be serious. After everything you have done to me and especially after what they have done to my family, you expect me to help this mutt? You have lost your mind,
Hana said furiously. Jiro just stood there watching the show while Fevra picked up the few words he could understand, trying to process the situation.
He's seen something you might be interested in. He knows where it's hidden. He might even be able to take you to it. I just need some information, that's all.
Vera slurred out in common.
What? Are you insane, Vera?
Fevra asked, now able to inject himself into the conversation.
Whatever it is, it's not worth the disgrace I would face being associated with a Lyran,
Hana said, still holding a flame out towards Fevra.
Trust me, Hana, it is definitely worth it. That power he has was just a side effect from being in contact with it. You know as well as I do that something like that is worth more than an entire kingdom,
Vera said, and Hana let go, dropping her color.
A fucking Lyran here in my city, and a necromancer at that. Mar would surely be pleased to know that his darkness has reached that deep into the forest. Tell me, mutt, how did you come to this power?
Hana said as she walked around him, tucking her arms behind her back.
I'm not telling you anything,
Fevra replied, holding his gaze upon her.
Just fucking tell her, Fevra. We need answers and she doesn't do anything for free, well except for fucking. That's something only special people get to experience without coin,
Vera said in a drunken slur. Hana rolled her eyes and walked back to Vera.
I opened my heart to you and this is how you treat me. Glad to know you are just as immature and childish as you always have been,
Hana replied.
Are you serious, Vera? Don't you understand what you are saying, or are you too drunk to even think?
Fevra asked in frustration.
Oh, I'm pretty drunk, but that's not the issue here. Quit being a bitch and tell her,
Vera replied, then sat back down.
Fuck.
Fevra said, running his hand down his face.
I encountered a very powerful necromantic weapon around 2 years ago. A massive sword made from black crystal. Somehow a living entity embedded itself within the blade. It was able to take control of my mind, made me obey its will. I murdered my brother and pack mates under its control and now am cursed with this dark pressure,
Fevra explained as he had no choice in the matter at this point. Hana's eyes widened and she turned to Vera, who raised her bottle up and made a face as if she was saying, I told you so.
You aren't lying to me? This truly happened?
Hana asked, now less hostile than before. Fevra nodded with a depressed look on his face as the memory of his brother came back to him. He lost so much over the past few years.
What is it that you need from me?
Hana asked after a moment of silence.
We believe that a clan of necromancers have been attempting to create something called a Bloodblade. One of our clan members was responsible for the murder of the Grand Bell Sage and was said to be involved with these necromancers. We need to know what this clan is really doing. Vera said you might have an insight on the necromancers due to your relationship.
Fevra explained as Hana eyed him.
You really are clueless, aren't you? The necromancers aren't just trying to forge blood blades, they are attempting to summon a watcher. For what purpose I can't say, but honestly it shouldn't be of much concern. Every attempt to summon one of those beasts has resulted in their own destruction. Fucking animals.
Hana replied.
Are you fucking serious? A watcher? One of Kalas's children, the precursors of my entire race? Why the fuck would they try to summon one?
Fevra asked in complete horror. Vera almost fell off her chair and choked on her drink.
Fuck, you can't be serious,
she asked after coughing several times.
That's what I heard,
Hana said nonchalantly as she walked around a table running her finger across the smooth wood.
Most if not all attempts ended in complete disaster. They are bound to fail and kill themselves in the process.
Hana continued without much care.
How is this not a big deal to you?
Fevra asked, trying to understand the situation.
Because the necromancers are out in the middle of nowhere. The only reason why rumors have been circulating about them being within city walls is that they are raiding graves for the necessary components needed to perform the ritual. It's only an issue because of grave robbing and general panic caused by such acts,
Hana answered.
You are talking about a spell that can create a gravity well. That kind of power could kill thousands of innocent people and you are not concerned about it, are you mad?
Fevra questioned angrily.
As I said, they are far out in the wilderness. The most damage they can cause is the loss of some trees, dirt and a ruined castle. Trust me, I wouldn't be so happy if they detonated it within the walls, but they set up a remote camp to prevent such a situation.
Hana shot back.
What about the Elven?
Vera asked, still drunk but sober enough to get the point across.
What about them? As far as I know, they have been too busy dealing with their own problems to want to come clear over here,
Hana replied, not entirely sure why Vera had asked.
We have reason to believe they are involved with the necromancers, or at least a small number of them.
Fevra explained.
They would be fools if they were. There is no way to summon a watcher without a massive sacrifice. I'm talking about death in the thousands along with virgin mage blood. It would take more than a collection of novice mages to make any progress if they could even get past the initial ritual,
Hana explained.
So here is where we stand. We have rumors and the words of a criminal suggesting that the necromancers are attempting to perform extremely dangerous rituals and elven spies potentially plotting an invasion with absolutely no evidence to back any of it up. I am crippled and Vera is too drunk to hold any information. We have absolutely nothing to go off of. I suggest that you accompany us back to the sanctuary where we can put together a plan. That way Vera can sober up, Neela can advise the situation and everyone can be on the same page.
Fevra replied, still trying to make sense of the situation.
I will only help on one condition,
Hana said after a moment of thinking.
And what would that be?
Fevra asked.
I want the black blade,
Hana replied with a devilish grin.
This isn't working,
Koji said after hours of channeling his color through the stone obelisk that stood only feet before him. The intricately carved pillar, adorned with dozens of multicolored ropes and chains, sat unflinching in the snow-covered field the clan found themselves in. Small gusts of wind blew the long yellow and brown grass like waves as the snow formed drifting clouds around them. The bloody corpses of 6 deer lay about them, forming the dark symbol of their church as fuel for their experiments.
Be patient, Koji, our goddess has promised us this gift. Trust in her, let her power flow through you.
Ren replied as he continued to push his color out. Ren had begun to form a lot of respect for Koji over the past few months. As the newest member of their clan, he was exceptionally gifted in the dark arts. Although a bit immature, he had quickly risen to be the third in command behind him and Haru. Koji sighed and extended his color again, letting it wrap around the obelisk. The orange hue sparked and crackled as it mixed with Ren's light green aura. The 20 necromancers sat around the pillar, each channeling their color in hopes to appease their goddess, the one true god of Haven. As the group's color sparked and crackled, forming together in a muddy mess of hues, the obelisk began to transform. Slice by slice, as if cut by a blade, the stone separated in multiple circular segments. Each slice levitated above the other with intensity. As each rose higher and higher into the air, a bright brilliant light extended between them. Ever slowly the light reached up and passed through the stone. Only the chains and ropes holding each segment in place as the stone defied all sense of gravity. The necromancers continued to push out their color, allowing this act of defiance to play out before them. Only looking up once the chains and ropes tightened. Upon this moment in time they had finally arrived at the precipice of their most recent experiment. Bloodblades, watchers, zombies, flesh mending, none of them were feasible with their limited numbers and support. Despite being members of the Church of Vera, their experiments weren't sanctioned by the High Priestess. She believed that simply summoning their goddess was impossible. However, this small clan knew it was possible. She had spoken to them in their dreams, made them believe that given the right sacrifices and enough magic she could be summoned into this realm. From what they had learned, they knew that after the creation of Haven, the gods Callus, Della, Vir, Mar, and Cetra had used all of their power and gave their lives to birth the races of Rin. Only Vir stood during this time with all of her power still in hand. She ripped land itself from the planet to create her home in a different realm. After this act of pure godliness, she was unable to return to Haven, however held enough power to continue to communicate with her beloved creations. As the clan watched the fruits of their labors blossom into reality, they knew their goddess would one day walk upon Haven once more. In an instant, the muddy aura that flowed around the obelisk was sucked inward, imploding in violent fashion. As the color was sucked from the world around them, the obelisk dropped into place, only leaving the void behind with a thunderous crash. The mutilated deer that lay slaughtered around the clan quivered, then levitated into the air, being consumed by the dark void that threatened to suck in the world around it. As each blood-soaked piece of flesh entered the void, it pulsed and throbbed as the meat and bone were formed around it. Sickening noises of bones breaking and slurping of blood filled the cold dead air. The clan watched as their experiment began to take shape. A bloated, festering orb of bloody meat and shattered bones. Upon the top of the orb laid a gaping maw of jagged bones and antlers, for malformed legs made from a multitude of different gushing body parts jutted out from the sides. A great bone beak made from 2 skulls sheared its way through the front of the pulsing mass, and 12 eyes opened at once, greeting their tormentors as it splashed to the ground with a spatter. The last thing to appear before it belched out a scream so loud it reverberated through the ground itself was a thin blade-like tail that reached the heavens.